The year is 2023, and the world lies in ruin. After years of global conflict, fought with weapons of mass destruction, most of the Earth's surface is uninhabitable, forcing the few still living to burrow underground. The Earth slips into nuclear winter as society becomes another forgotten civilization left in the wake of history. The few still living are left to wander among the anarchy and desolation as Mother Nature slowly reclaims her battered planet. At times, the living can be seen outside the confines of their secure, radiation-free settlements as they recall the past. The man standing in the field remembers his wife's face, a face that once stood for hope. Like so many others, she had succumbed to illness and died shortly after falling ill. All hope is now lost. And so he reports back to base. The man is Soldier 773S. He's part of a faction of armed survivors who have taken refuge in an abandoned steel mill. Among the survivors are scientists who stop at nothing to ensure the survival of the human race. Despite their intentions, the survivors living among the base are held captive and subject to cruel experiments. Yet they understand they have no other choice. The guards have come to escort him back to his holding cell until detox. Those who chose to comply with the faction's orders lost the ability to think for themselves. And those who don't comply are forced to. He understands and follows without question. It is now the present day, and a man is waking up from a dream. The dream is one he's had many times before, one that involves a strange building, a staircase, and his estranged brother. He forgets about it and heads to work, The envelope has no return address. The contents, one small journal. Curious, he begins to read.
Dark, cold, and alone. I begin to stare out at the cell window, wondering. Thoughts seem to float to a particular memory. With a moth to light, I find myself fixated on this memory. Or is it a dream? Unlike most of my memories, this one never seems to be clear. The guards have returned. It appears that I had been requested by the scientists. The guards escorted me to radiation detox and cleanup before facing them. On my way to detox, I was met by the faction leader. This was no coincidence. Now I knew I was part of something important to them. At a distance, we stared at each other. The leader's eyes were shaded even in the darkness of the tunnel. This dead stare was said to be the reason why most obeyed him, and why most feared him.
The man in the office stops reading. Was this from his estranged brother? And was he in danger? While reading, he spots a local address circled. He leaves early from work to investigate. When he arrives, he is greeted by a man with a cautious look on his face. He describes how he got the address and how his brother might be in danger. The man agrees and lets him in. The man explains he knew his brother as a colleague when working together in a physics lab. He hadn't heard from him in years, ever since they agreed to work on a grant given by the Department of Defense involving quantum mechanics. He takes out the journal and tells him to read where he left off. The man's expression suddenly becomes serious.
I was cleaned for radiation and was taken to meet the base's lead scientist. I didn't know or care what would happen to me, but I'll admit my mind was awash with adrenaline. Something big was about to happen. Upon entering, I was greeted by an imposing man claiming to be the leader of the faction's experiments. He starts by calmly stating one fact. Our civilization stood irreversibly doomed. Any attempt outside the confines of the base was futile. But there existed a way into the past, a way that involved sending someone to relieve their memories so they could retrieve resources. For the scientists, it was a matter of quantum mechanical calculations. For the test subjects, it was a matter of having a strong memory. The reason for sending someone into the past was to stop a man who was to discover the methods of this experiment. If anyone in the past were to discover these advanced methods of time travel and implement them, time would become entangled into itself, and the experiment would be ruined. I was chosen for the experiment because of my unique ability to remember the past in vivid detail, particularly my wife's face. The man seemed pleased, and then gave me specific instructions. I was to find a particular man and eliminate him. That the only thing known about him was where he was going to be at a particular moment in time. I was then escorted to the lab to begin the experiment. Preparations only take a few minutes. darkness. Thoughts of bliss. Memories more vivid than I had ever experienced. I suddenly see a face from the dead. The face of my wife-to-be. Before we met at the base. Before we knew each other. Could all this be a dream? Could it actually be real? I didn't care. And so I pursued her. After a few minutes, she begins to take notice. But instead of being frightened, she seems to be intrigued. She sits down to eat and invites me to sit with her. We don't notice the time that goes by. After the meal, she asks to meet tomorrow at the Overlook. I agree.
The man in the storage room stops reading the journal. He proceeds to give him an envelope of documents collected from the experiment that he and his brother had worked on as colleagues. He then instructs him to go look for his brother. He gives him an address of the place he was last known to live at in another city close by. He finds himself at his brother's desk, then suddenly has an urge to look through his drawers. But to his surprise, he discovers something that he would never imagine his brother having. He places the gun back and decides to spend the night there. At night, he decides to read the contents of the envelope. The documents appear to be heavy scientific data on the topic of quantum neurological mechanics. By the looks of it, this data seems profound and detailed. To his understanding, the documents had never been published. So he plans to go in the morning to the nearest university to share his findings. While reading through more of his brother's things, he stumbles across something very familiar. Something that has haunted his dreams for as long as he could remember. a grave mistake. He has killed his own brother. His mind returns to the lab as he falls back disoriented. This time, things seem different. Soldier 773S has completed his mission, but at a very heavy price. It all made sense now. The experimenters didn't just use him or his memories, but for his connection to his brother, the journal, and the documents. Despite his accomplishments, the experimenters show no pity. So he would continue living, forever imprisoned, always at their disposal. But instead of continuing to live in this war-torn world, he asks to be sent back into his mind, to be with his wife once again.